Okay, we're live.
For those of you who missed it, we were having some minor technical difficulties this time as opposed to last time where it was major technical difficulties.
Yeah, thankfully it was very minor this time.
So we're finally back to do our next video on the top dumbest complaints we've heard the past year we've been together. And we would have gotten to it sooner, but things have been coming up with it, mate. Because one night, my dad was busy sleeping because he works night shifts, and I was afraid I'd wake him up. And yesterday I was just so tired, and I'm pretty sure Sarah was probably busy with work.
Sorry, my dad just came in again. But like Chris said in the last video, he's allowed to interrupt us because he's helped us before.
So special shout out to him for helping us fix it. And by the way, you're looking like Velma Dinkley right now.
Thanks. And yeah, I've been busy with my 4 part-time jobs that I have.
So without any further ado, let's get started from complaints 15 to 11. Number 15, hating Victoria for getting in the way of Victor and Emily.
Number 14, hating Rapunzel because she's CGI.
Number 13, hating a character for being a Disney ripoff.
Number 12, hating a character for being a token character. Sorry, I lost my place.
I probably threw you off with that whole Velma Dinkley thing. Anyway, and number 11, hating a character because, dun dun dun, they're evil. Starting with number 15, hating Victoria for getting in the way of Victor and Emily. Oh, brother. Boy, shipping gets in the way with lots of things, doesn't it?
A lot of things.
Especially if you're in fandoms like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Once Upon a Time like I am. Because trust me, there are definitely a lot of insane hardcore shippers.
And also in the Phineas and Ferb fandom.
I'm afraid to find out, but with who?
There are people who think that get ready for this, Candace and Vanessa should be a lesbian couple. There are people who think that Ferb should be with Vanessa. There are people who think that
well, technically in the end, and Ferb did get with Vanessa.
Yeah, and there are people that think that Vanessa's ex-boyfriend, Johnny, should be with her. People who think that Major Monogram's son should be with her. All kinds of things. There are people who think that Phineas should be with Candace's friend Stacy, even though they've never even had much of all kinds of weird ships.
That's nothing. And there's a ship called the Swan Queen, which is Regina and Emma together, which to me is definitely weird considering that Emma's technically her step-granddaughter.
Probably the weirdest. Probably the 2 weirdest ships I'd say in Phineas and Ferb are the Phineas and Ferb gay ship, and And the weirdest is the bestiality ship of Perry and Doofenshmirtz.
I knew I'd be sorry I asked. Well, we better get back to the actual complaint before we get into a gray area. But anyway, I've never understood why Victoria gets hate just because she gets in the way of Victor and Emily, which I think is the main reason that she gets hate, and people just come up with a bunch of weak reasons not to like her.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought that Victor and Emily were a particularly good couple, but if you prefer them, that's your business. But don't hate Victoria just because she gets in the way of them.
I definitely never was a fan of Victor and Emily. In fact, when I was a kid, I would have nightmares that I was Victor and Emily was trying to take me down to the underworld. Although, to be fair, when I first saw it, it was only the first half, and I didn't get to watch the second half until I got older, so that made sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I used to have nightmares about Nightmare Before Christmas, because I first saw it when I was like 6 years old.
Makes sense. Although back to the point, I think Victoria is a very interesting character in her own right. She's not the most well-written character, but she's pretty well-written, and she has her own personality. It's not like with, let's say, the whole love triangle with Kermit, Miss Piggy, and Denise, where Denise has pretty much no identity outside of just being Kermit's love interest and a way to bring conflict to Kermit and Miss Piggy's relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I was never big on relationships like that, where they just bring in another one-dimensional character to break up a couple.
Or in the case of Twilight, where it's three one-dimensional characters.
But yeah, back to the point. If you, I think that Victoria, Victor, and Emily are all decent characters in their own right. And hating a character just because they get in the way of some ship that you prefer is a pretty weak reason.
Plus, I find the shipping of Victor and Emily creepy, considering the fact that she's a corpse. And plus, they're missing the point into the whole Emily being able to grow and finally let go. Oh, because she's realizing that by trying to be with Victor, that she's taking away the dreams of someone else who is young, like she was, and she's pretty much doing the same thing that the villain did to her, in a way, only not killing her, instead killing Victor.
Yeah, a big point of that was that she was able to develop and mature as a character and finally let go.
I think that's all we have to say for this, unless you have anything to add.
Not really. Just that I have been guilty of hating characters because I didn't like who they were shipped with and that sort of thing.
Me too. But you name an example before I name one.
Yeah, my big one was Clarabelle Cow, because I didn't like her as Goofy's girlfriend.
Goofy and Sylvia all the way. Either that or Goofy single.
Yeah. But then I realized that I thought that she was a good character in her own right. I just didn't like them as a couple.
And for me, it was with Avatar: Last Airbender because I didn't like Sokka and Suki together. I preferred him to be with Toph. I don't know if you've gotten that far to where you've seen Toph yet.
No, I haven't.
Well, she's a blind girl who can earthbend with her and sees with her feet, in a matter of speaking. But that's beside the point. And yeah, that was the main reason I hated Suki for a while. But now I still hate Suki, but for different reasons. I think she's a weak character who's only there to be Sokka's love interest and doesn't have any point to the plot like the other characters do. But I've learned that just because I don't like her with Sokka, that doesn't mean that's a reason to hate her.
Yeah.
I have other reasons.
Yeah, I think that's about all we have to say. The next one is hating Rapunzel because she's CGI.
Oh boy. She didn't like Rapunzel for a long time. She disliked her for a long time, and that wasn't one of her reasons for disliking her.
Yeah, I've pretty much grown to kind of like her at this point. She still does have her pretty annoying moments. So I don't love her by any means, but I kind of like her.
Well, at least that was an improvement. Considering you got me to like Candace. But to the point.
Yeah, to the point. Even when I really disliked Rapunzel, while I am no fan of the animation Entangled, I wasn't going to add her being CGI to the reasons why I disliked her.
And of course, if you've been watching our videos, you know me and Sarah do have opposing opinions with Tangled. I think it's a great movie. She doesn't like it very much, just to put it nicely.
Yeah.
But just because a character is CG is no reason to hate them. That's pretty weak. By that logic, I would hate all Tim Burton characters because I hate the Tim Burton style. I think it's very odd looking. Well, it definitely has a unique look, and it's definitely his own thing. I've just never been a personal fan of it. If you like it, I can understand the appeal, but it's something weird whenever I see Disney characters or animated like that in fan art, and people going, "Oh, beautiful," and I'm going, "No, that look hideous."
Yeah, and I've never been a fan of like the animation style in the Aladdin franchise. To me, it's like they can't really make up their mind whether they want to go traditionally beautiful or untraditionally beautiful or what. It's just not my thing. I know that it has its fans, and I guess I can see the appeal in it, but it's just not my thing. And
I guess it was failing to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. To me, it was kind of failing to get the best of both worlds. So, if I went by how little I liked the animation, I might as well hate all the characters in that franchise.
And of course, I like the Aladdin style, and I think she likes the Tim Burton style.
Yeah, and I like the Tim Burton style. But hating a character just because you hate the animation style is really weak and has nothing to do with how good the character is or their personality and that kind of stuff.
If only people wouldn't realize that whenever they were going to see The Princess and the Frog, since I'm pretty sure it didn't do good because it wasn't CG. And yet, a lot of CG movies that are crap have managed to outdo it.
Yep, unfortunately.
And yeah, I'm not one of those animation fans who are saying that I only like big 2D animation or whatever. For me, it depends on the story and the characters rather than the animation. I mean, the animation could be awful, like in the Aladdin sequels, but still be a genuinely good movie that I'll enjoy because it's well written and the characters are likable.
Yeah, definitely.
And Rapunzel, in my opinion, does have a three-dimensional personality. She's well written. He goes through a big change going from this naive little girl into this mature woman who finally stands up to Mother Gothel.
Yeah, she definitely has a three-dimensional personality, and she does go through character development. Um, she's much better written than most of the characters in Frozen, which is much more popular.
And that's gonna and that reminds me, one time whenever I do a review that has the complaint overrated in it, I gotta have my nieces and Frozen reigns to make it seem like it's everywhere. Because I'm planning on going, it's freaking everywhere. Ah! I guess it's one of the few perks of having a niece who is obsessed with Frozen. But back to the point, ain't even if you don't like CG animation, that's no reason to dislike a character, and I think that's pretty much all we have to say, unless you have anything to add.
Not really.
Okay, moving on. Hang a character for being a Disney ripoff. Oh boy, I've been waiting for this one. We've pretty much done this with all the characters the main ones, other than Thumbelina, who've been accused of being Disney ripoffs. Odette, Anastasia, Kaylee.
Yep. Yeah, we've done this one to death.
Yeah, but apparently, if it's a movie with a love story, musicals, pretty girls that look like the traditional Disney style, and especially if it's a princess, then
or a fairy tale fantasy.
Or a fairy tale fantasy, then it's a ripoff.
And as I've mentioned before, if those are considered Disney ripoffs, then why is something like An American Tail or Secret of NIMH not a ripoff of something like Great Mouse Detective, Rescuers Down Under?
Yeah, in fact, even though I adore the movie, The Land Before Time is technically a Disney ripoff of Bambi, especially since Don Bluth said he wanted it to be like a Bambi story only with dinosaurs. So he openly admitted that it was a Disney ripoff.
Definitely.
And plus, if you want to get technical, well, The Lion King was ripping it off a little bit with the whole circle of life theme, and the fact that it had a dead parent and communicating with a protagonist who has to go through a coming-of-age story.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Disney has ripped off other other animated movies also. So why don't they get accused of ripping things off too?
Yeah, like Tiana and Naveen's transformation back into humans. That transformation looked a lot like Odette's transformation in The Swan Princess.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And an interesting story we should bring up is the Thumbelina story, and with how before it hit theaters, they did a screen test with audiences and I think some critics.
And they had the Disney logo.
Yep, it made a huge difference because they put the Disney logo at the beginning of the movie before they actually put it into theaters. And it was praised, saying this is a good Disney movie. And then when it wasn't released with the Disney logo in the theaters, it was panned.
Yeah, so why should something get more praise just because it's got the Disney logo in front of it?
Yeah. While Thumbelina does have its problems, it's a good movie. I don't think it's awful. Well, it's definitely nowhere near the level of the awful Don Bluth movies that came on later, like a Troll in Central Park, Rockadoodle, Bartok the Magnificent, or Titan AE, which the main character is probably even more unlikable than Dimitri, just to warn you if you ever watch it.
Thanks for the warning.
But yeah, I think movies like The Swan Princess and Anastasia are pretty well made movies. I mean, Anastasia probably would have done better without having Dimitri in it. That way, it wouldn't be looking bad by leaving her grandmother for him or having that awful romance.
Yeah. Yeah, and disliking a character just because they were trying to make them look like a Disney character doesn't make any sense to me.
And plus, a lot of times I do blame the source material, like with The Swan Princess, it's an adaptation of Swan Lake, which is very much like a Disney fairy tale, except that it ends with the main characters. But then again, you can say the same thing with The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, all of the fairy tales that Disney did, if the main characters died at the end, they of course edited that for kids.
Yep, especially since during that time, if they had The Little Mermaid die, they definitely would have failed and would have been shut down, since back then, and if it wasn't for The Little Mermaid, Disney would probably not be around now.
Yeah. Well, and even in a lot of their early ones, they edited out a lot of violent parts, like the
Black Cauldron,
like Black Cauldron,
or like Very People,
or the part in Cinderella where the stepsisters cut off parts of their feet to fit the slipper and that kind of stuff.
That could not have been comfortable. And I thought walking around in glass shoes would be hurtful. I mean, painful. And plus, as with like something like the Swan Princess, considering that company definitely did not have a huge budget, and yet it still managed to look great. It had some pretty good writing, a lot of likable characters, and it was still pretty profitable. That it's made 4 sequels, 2 good and 2 awful CGI ones.
Yeah, that tells you how popular it was.
Even though the critical reaction to it and on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty mixed, but to be fair, there wasn't a lot of people overviewing it, so it's not fair, especially since it had the unfortunate luck of coming out the same weekend as The Lion King. That's gotta be lousy, lousy luck.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add before we go on to the next one?
Just even if they were trying to knock off Disney with those characters, disliking them because they might be Disney knockoffs is a really weak reason and has nothing to do with the quality of characters that they are.
Yeah, Bodette's one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. My top 20. So, I think that's it. Moving on.
Hating a character for being a token character.
And this is definitely very personal for us, considering the first 2 characters we ever review were token chicks.
Yep. Yeah,
And
sadly, so many token characters, especially token chicks, get hated just because of that.
And yeah, there are some badly done token characters, whether token chick, token dude, token racial character. But there are plenty of well done ones. Like I said in my a video where I discussed why token chicks aren't all sexist. Jasmine and from Aladdin, who is definitely the token chick of the group, even the TV series, but she has a three-dimensional personality and is not just Aladdin's arm candy. And like Sarah said in one of her videos, he's more her arm candy in the Disney Princess franchise.
Definitely. And then you've got characters like Lola Bunny, Miss Piggy, and of course my favorite, Webby Vanderquack.
Or all good characters in their own right. And Webby and Miss Piggy have three-dimensional personalities. Lola has a two-dimensional one, but has a three-dimensional one in the comics. And are usually, in fact, Miss Piggy was actually considered by the creators of the Muppets to be the first Muppet to actually have a three-dimensional personality instead of just a two-dimensional one or a one-dimensional one.
Yeah, she definitely has the most depth of any of the Muppets.
Despite people saying that she's abusive, yet they leave out the fact that she's usually hitting people when they say something offensive to her.
And then of course with Webby, as I've mentioned before, she's got a lot more depth than the boys do.
Or a lot more one-dimensional than she was.
And she's a lot more competent and smart than they are.
Yes, because she actually has a brain in her head. And yet she's the one who gets the most hate because she's the token chick and, of course, is girly and acts like a little girl, despite the fact that she is a little girl.
Yeah, all that garbage.
And then you have Lola Bunny, who was the character who definitely started all of it. It's when I made my video on Lola Bunny. She's definitely been accused a lot of just being the token chick and not having any personality and blah blah blah, all that garbage. But she definitely has her own character. She would definitely be able to stand her own ground if they ever made shorts about her.
Definitely.
Since she is definitely entertaining, and I think is a character where you have someone who is a tomboy but isn't rolling around in the dirt like somewhat unlike Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And if you think you have bad hair, then you have not seen Toph's hair. It's and considering she's blind, it must be a killer to have to do that hair. But she's rather a feminine tomboy who doesn't write off things that are girly as weak and accepts both as a part of her and doesn't shame anyone for being into girly or feminine things and just is tolerant of others, but is not tolerant whenever they're treating her like she's less than equal, which is why she does not like to be called doll.
Yeah, while she's not the best developed character, she was well done for the time that they gave her, for the short amount of screen time that they gave her.
That also reminds me, it's something we could say with Webby, like how Lola is a feminine tomboy who doesn't write off girly things as weak. Webby is a character who is girly, but can still do guy things and go on adventures and be just as competent, if not more competent, than the guys.
Yeah. And like I said, there are poorly done token characters like uh, Goslin Mallard from Darkwing Duck,
Ugh.
who gets a whole lot more praise than Webby does. But
Despite being a one-dimensional little brat.
yeah, yeah, she's nothing but a one-dimensional, stereotypical tomboy.
And a stereotypical brat.
Yep. And then you've got characters like Bo Peep from the original Toy Story, who was nothing but Woody's arm candy and that kind of stuff.
And they got rid of her in the third movie, though I heard the reason was because whenever they would go to a junkyard, she's made out of material that would cause her to melt. Yeah, that'd be an image.
Yeah.
I guess that's why they're making a fourth movie to go after her. Oh.
But while there are poorly done token characters, that doesn't mean
I got one. And wait, what the perfect example of poorly done token characters, whether they're token racial, token female, token male, is definitely the Barbie franchise.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, in the Barbie franchise, but Barbie and her sisters are pretty much the only characters that have any depth to them. Then you've got her token racial friends who are just there to be the token racial characters, and
the ultimate Barbie accessory, Ken.
And Ken, who's just there to be her arm candy and accessory, and the token dude. So yeah, there are token characters like those. But just because the character is a token character, it by no means means that they're a bad character.
Yeah, it varies. It's just like how I think that just because something is a sequel or a remake, that it's not doesn't make it automatically bad. I mean, you have your good and your bad. And like Cinderella was a good remake, and Maleficent was awful.
Yeah, definitely.
You know the main reason they made Maleficent was because Angelina Jolie was the perfect Maleficent.
Yeah, she was a good character in it, but other than that, I didn't like it.
I don't think the character itself was good, but I think it was mainly Angelina Jolie's performance, and she definitely looked the part. Right? And I think Elle Fanning definitely did a good job as Aurora, and did add some character to someone who doesn't have much to her. But to the point, just because something is a particular category, whatever it may be, it doesn't automatically make it bad. Just like how like if something is Star Wars, it doesn't automatically make it good.
Oh, the Star Wars sequels and prequels.
Oh boy, and they're trying to do it again.
I saw the new one in theaters. It's pretty good.
And I've never been a fan of Star Wars, so I didn't bother.
But that's not what we're here to talk about.
So anything you want to add before we go on to the last one?
Nah.
And number 11, hang a character because dun dun dun, they're evil.
Cool. Much like the token character, just because the character is evil, it doesn't make them a bad character.
Usually it makes them the fun character. Her username on FanPub is Cruella, for goodness sake. And yeah, growing up as a kid, like most kids, I wasn't a fan of villains until I got older, but definitely growing up, one of the few villains that I did love as a kid was Cruella de Vil. Out of the few villains that I loved, she was one of my homegirls. I loved Cruella, and once when my mom got out of tea set, I pretended that I was sipping tea with Cruella because of that one scene in the movie. Although thankfully she didn't put a cigarette in the cupcake in my fantasy. One of the few times I actually did play Tea Party.
Well, I was, as I've mentioned before, I was pretty much born loving the villains.
She had tea parties with them.
Yeah, I had I had imaginary friends of a bunch of the Disney villains.
That would be the most fun tea party ever.
Yeah, for me, like I've mentioned before, it was mainly because I just found them a lot more interesting than the heroes from the movies, and I didn't really start liking the heroes. I didn't really start liking heroes until I got older and was able to to understand the more complex personalities and that sort of thing.
And considering I watched shows like Once Upon a Time and Avatar: Last Airbender, they definitely put a lot of depth to their villains, like Azula being a very complex character who unfortunately doesn't perform as of now. Just wait till the comics perform from her, which I'm hoping and praying for, but she is a complex character that eventually has a meltdown because of the lack of love she's had in her life, and she wants to be loved, and even has a hallucination of her mother saying that she loves her, but she's aware that she's losing her mind and that her mother isn't really there.
But yeah, I've heard this complaint about hating characters because they're evil from all kinds of people, like whether it's people my age on the internet saying that you're not supposed to root for the villain, or parents because they don't want the villain to become the child's role model, and
if their role model is a villain, then that's the fault of the parents. And if their role model is a villain, they'll likely grow out of it in like a week or so.
Yeah, and if they're if they're trying to role model themselves after a villain, sit down and talk to them and tell them that they're not intended to be a role model.
Heck, they're advertising Cruella de Vil as a reason why you shouldn't smoke.
Yeah.
And she's apparently the same age as Anita, and Anita looks a lot younger than she does. Since apparently they went to school together.
Yeah, maybe a few years older, but not that much.
Yeah, the cigarettes probably took their toll on Cruella. And the villains are meant to be enjoyable antagonists. They're supposed to cause conflict and actually bring a lot of story to the movies.
Yeah, I mean, how enjoyable would 101 Dalmatians be if Cruella wasn't in it?
It would just be looking at a bunch of puppies. Cruella was definitely the meal ticket for 101 Dalmatians. It's the reason why it's as big as it is. And
yeah, I can't really think of any movies that would be as good as as they were if you wrote the villains out.
Well, probably a Frozen, but then again, that movie didn't set the bar too high.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a couple of them, I guess.
And besides, with things like Once Upon a Time, I've realized that the villains usually have the best lines. Like one where Zelina's on the phone with Regina, revealing that she's alive and that she was Marion the whole time, and Regina saying, "What have you done with Robin?" And she said, "I haven't done anything, dear, except love and honor him, to have and to hold, and sickness and in health, and all other wildly nonsense." Or like Azula in Avatar Last Airbender, where he thinks she's found the Avatar because she followed Appa's trail of hair and says, My, you're easy to follow. It's really astounding my brother hasn't captured you yet." The villains are usually a lot of the fun. I mean, Hades from Hercules is the most popular character in that movie, and he's the villain.
Definitely.
And I usually find myself rooting for him over the good guys.
He's a lot more interesting than the good guys.
Anything you want to add since you are the villain expert?
Well, like the token character one, there are definitely some poorly done villains, like Hans from Frozen, and also the Duke of whatever he's from.
Weaseltown.
Weaseltown from Frozen, but both of those are definitely poorly done. And while I understand that not everybody is going to be a die-hard villain fan like I am, hating a character just because they're evil or they're the villain is again a really weak reason, since there are some very well done and very complex villains that, like Chris mentioned, are pretty much the meal ticket of the movie or show.
So I think that's it. So thankfully we didn't have too much technical difficulty like last time. So, yeah, thank goodness. So we'll try to get at our next two videos up during the weekend. I do have my niece coming over, but I'll probably be able to keep her downstairs during the time. We'll see what happens. Plus, Sarah probably depends on what happens in our schedule, since we live completely different lives, live in two different locations, and apparently a different time zone. I'm an hour ahead of her.
Yeah, we'll try to get our next two up over the weekend.
And there will be a link to our first video in the description box below. Please like, share, and subscribe.
And also a link to our personal channels. But please subscribe to those too if you haven't already.
Bye, and see you next time.